Hello, welcome to the Pop Off PC Mag's video game show. I'm Jordan Miner, and today we're joined by a very cool guest, Anthony Frasier, here to talk about his project, Raising the Game, the Untold Story of Jerry Lawson. Anthony, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for, inviting me. PC Mag is definitely one of my favorite, publications. So it's a joy to be here, man.
Sweet. So a little bit, just give guests or give our audience just a little background. Who you are? What do you do? What do you do? Who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Anthony Frasier. I am the CEO of ABF Creative. We are a multicultural podcast network and production company. So we like to use data-driven approaches in production to make podcasts for ourselves, but then also for some of your favorite brands.
Cool. So we're here to talk about your audiobook you just put out, Raising the Game, the Untold Story of Jerry Lawson.
Yeah.
The untold story is that Jerry Lawson is this engineer, this hidden figure, this founding father of video games, and He is an African American. He's a Black guy, and not a lot of people know about him and his contributions to this industry, and more people need to know. And you've created this awesome audiobook explaining who he is to more people. What inspired you to pursue this project?
Man, I would say in 2011. I actually traveled to Silicon Valley, and my first day there, I saw a flyer on the ground that said, memorial service honoring the late Jerry Lawson. And I said, wait, who's this? And I just dug deeper, and it was like, yeah, he's an inventor of the video game cartridge. And that stuck with me. I actually ended up going to that memorial service and learning so much about him, and met some interesting people from Silicon Valley, like Ken Coleman and others. And then I went home and did more research, and I saw that there was this big debate, like, oh, he didn't invent the video game cartridge. This person did, or that person did. It was just always this big question mark on, who really invented it. And then who was Jerry Lawson? I saw that there was a lot of people from that same era who just became huge and had all these different accolades, but for some reason, his story just kind of faded to the back. And it's ironic that he is the only Black man who was part of all of this too, and how he just kind of faded to the back. And so that really inspired me to really just dig deep and find out, okay, who is Jerry Lawson? And the podcast is really just to kind of be like a kickoff, to say like, okay, challenging anyone else to kind of go out and find more and dig more up on him. So I see it as like really just the beginning of something much bigger.
Cool. So you mentioned that when you first heard about him and first kind of started researching, it was the year that he died, unfortunately. So yeah, like in the recent years, there's been this kind of renewed interest in him, but we have to rely on secondary sources. We can't interview him. But you were able to talk to his two adult children. What was their reaction when you like just approached them that you wanted to even do this project? What was the reaction from them? I guess
they were very open. They were just very honored that I wanted to tell their father's story. And it was, there were a lot of people reaching out to them, and I guess my approach to them, or my pitch to them was like, hey, I want to do the most anyone has done it. And then hopefully that inspires more people to do more after me. Because there were just like little episodes. I remember Netflix came out with something and it was like a nice, 15-minute, 13-minute segment, but it wasn't digging really deep. I said, no, I want to dig deep. Like, I really want to talk to not just his children, but, even more people. I really want to get to know who this man was and what was his career like, and so, which discovered so much, just from that alone, but they were very receptive.
Cool. So I listened to the whole thing. I loved it.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
But I'm curious, and there's so many fascinating little just bits and asides, and like how you talk to like kind of these other retired and older executives in the games industry who worked with him in the past. Right. And you mentioned that some of them seemed to like forget who he was or certain details about him.
Right.
And that surprised me. Or
John McAfee. One of them, his son was like, hey, John McAfee Used to call the office, used to be in the garage with my father. He used to call the house almost all the time. And then when I reached out to John McAfee actually threatened me.
Oh, no.
John McAfee he was like, if you send one more email, I am going to, sue you, and just kind of just all these different things. And his wife even sent a separate email just saying, begging me, like, I beg you, please don't email John. Please don't. I beg of you. And I'm just like, wow, is it that serious? Like,
that's journalism. That's how you know you're doing the real hard hitting work.
I was like, what is it? Did Jerry, like, what was it that made him? But John, was having a lot of different issues. So it could have been, it could have been anything else. And maybe he just didn't know if I was who I really was. But I feel like we were robbed of a great story. I feel like we could have really got a great story out of that.
Now that you may have just answered my next question, but I guess like what to you was the most surprising thing that you learned or uncovered over the course of your research? Was it the fact that John McAfee did not want to talk to you at all?
I mean, the biggest thing was the fact that Jerry Lawson was self-taught. Here's this guy who did all of this amazing work, led entire divisions at Fairchild, was pretty much taxed to create this video game console. It never, ever stepped foot into a school to learn any of it. To me, that was amazing. Like, and he was doing that way before it was embraced, like in modern times.
Right. There was no internet.
Right. There was no internet. Right. And so in modern times, we embrace that. Hey, self-taught, you can learn how to program, all of that. But back then in the 70s, like, no, if you didn't have a degree, you're not stepping in certain rooms. And then to not have a degree and also be African-American.
Yep.
In the 1970s, oh my goodness. Like, I was just really surprised. That just goes to show you just how intelligent this man was. And people like Nolan Bushnell, everyone, they all knew it. Like, this guy was a complete genius at what he did. And so that to me was the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's the George Washington Carver comparisons I found very, very illuminating.
Right. That, and then the fact that another thing that was very surprising, I feel like it's going to be overlooked. So I want to talk about it now. I don't think we covered just how impactful it was in the series. But, companies like Activision literally built their company off the back of his information. Like, there wouldn't even be an Activision if it wasn't for Jerry reverse engineering the Atari and writing a guide on how everybody can create their own cartridges for Atari. Like, there wouldn't be $1 billion company that we know and love today wouldn't even exist if he didn't do what he did.
The whole market, the whole idea of video games as a market would not exist if not, for the easy way.
Not in the way it is now. No,
it
wouldn't. No.
Yeah, you really can't undersell his contribution there.
No.
What was I going to say that? So I got thinking about how much I got just kind of blown away by it, and it kind of threw me off for a second. So, like you said, you're talking to his kids, that more people have become interested in the story since. I feel like we're seeing more people talk about Jerry Lawson and what he's done. We've seen like the Strong Museum of Play kind of have the Fairchild there as like a historical artifact for gaming. Yeah.
Right. They actually reached out. They said they wanted to talk even further and figure out ways to collaborate, and we were supposed to visit the museum as part of the research for this, but we had to do everything during COVID. So it just made everything a little bit tad harder, but we were okay with it.
So yeah, I think that it's proof that there is some bits of progress in games culture in regards to both recognizing Jerry and just recognizing and celebrating Black excellence in gaming. Period.
Right.
The biggest game of the moment right now is Deathloop, a Black director, David Macapa, and it was a Black lead, and people love that game. It's getting great scores. So I just want to talk to you about your thoughts on, having done this project now and kind of seeing this, going from Jerry's era to now.
Right.
Just your thoughts on how things are in terms of like Black representation in gaming, in games, and kind of, the engineering end, the technical end.
Yeah, on the technical end, I think we need more, Black and brown people behind the scenes, and that will easily start to reflect on the front. The back is always going to reflect the front, and so to me, if we get more people in those roles, in those high and leadership roles in programming behind the scenes, I think we'll start to see, some changes in some of the kind of characters and representation that we see. It's very interesting. I think there is progress. Not much, but there is progress when you see Deathloop and you see other games. I think we come a long way from the Afro Thunders of the world. And so like, I think that as long as, people recognize that, I hate to say it, but like the best game that represents us, I don't hate to say it, but I think they do a really good job is NBA 2K. I mean, if you look at, if you go into the My Player mode and you look at the different, even hairstyles that are in that game, you start to see they really know their audience.
I mean, Spike Lee did the story mode for one of those games. So
right. Exactly. They really know their audience. And I think that if, there are game developers and people in leadership roles that are listening to me speak right now, I would say, go to that game and go check out their creative player modes, go to their different hairstyles, check and really look and see how they really try to represent, culture in so many different ways. And I think there's something you could borrow from that and start to implement in other games. So we are starting to see progress. Like the last E3, I saw some trailers, like the trailer for Microsoft's zombie game that was really good. They had a black lead in that game.
Redfall or
not yet? Redfall. Yeah. Redfall was really good, but not even Redfall. The one before that,
State of Decay.
State of Decay.
Okay.
So they had a black lead in State of Decay. I don't know if she's an actual lead or it's just a trailer, just a trailer model. But either way, like I thought that was really good. Like they're really starting to show black women and black men in these games who look like real, actual black people, and that's always a good thing.
Cool. So I guess if there's any specific, like say you can put your audiobook in front of anyone in the game stream, anybody, the most powerful people, they have to listen to it. They have to just take it all in. I guess what do you want the biggest takeaway for them to be from Jerry's story?
Hire more black people. I'm probably going to say it like that.
It. Yeah.
Just straight up. I think I do know that people like Phil Spencer, Matt Booty are aware of the podcast. They've listened to it. Sarah Bond over at Microsoft has also listened to it and really paid homage to Jerry on her LinkedIn page as well. So there are executives who are listening to the podcast actually and responding to it, openly. Microsoft just made an endowment investment in the USC endowment that's in Jerry Lawson's name. And so they made a significant contribution, in naming Jerry. And I thought that was really great and thought was amazing. So we're starting to see it. I think, getting in front of these high-end executives who have control over the hiring. I think as long as we do that, I think that Jerry's legacy will start to live on.
Cool. Yeah, and also just with the timing of the release, we got the Game Devs with Color Expo, which might already be happening by the time this comes out. Yeah, it's great to see places like Microsoft and Nintendo, get behind that and offer scholarships and support. So yeah, it could be faster, it could be more aggressive, but the progress is happening. I think we've had
somewhat. It's happening.
Somewhat, yeah.
I think once we start to see those changes happen, we'll start to see less and less foolery going around in the industry. You saw the allegations that are starting to come out. This is all because you're just not hiring the right people. When you start to hire the right people in these places, not only are you going to get better games, but you're going to get better culture.
Yep, totally.
I think that's what we're not talking about either. It's not just about the games that people are playing and the representation, but it's also the work culture, the vibes, going to work. Do people love working there? Like, people are going to love working in very diverse spaces. This isn't even an opinion. This is actual statistics and research that backs these things up. And so once the game industry starts to move towards that, I think we'll start to see a difference.
Could not agree more. Anthony Frasier, here's your chance to give us your best plug for the book. Since it's an audiobook, people will be hearing your voice a lot. So you might as well, tell them yourself in your own words.
Yeah, I think if you want to really get exposed to someone who was an amazing person, but a genius, like Jordan just mentioned, the Washington, carver of our times. To me, that person is Jerry Lawson. And you're going to learn about someone who revolutionized gaming, and you wouldn't be enjoying the medium that you play every day if it wasn't for somebody like him. And so tune in, and like you said, you used a perfect description, hidden figure, because that's exactly what he is. And get in tune with it, because soon enough, a lot more people are going to know his name. You'll see the movies, you'll see more books. All of those things are on the way. I know. So tune in now.
Cool. The book is Raising the Game, The Untold Story of Jerry Lawson by Anthony Frasier, available now as an Audible original audiobook. Anthony Frasier, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
And we'll talk to you next time.